Hello, hello, hello. A very, very warm welcome to all our amazing audience here. I was away from the podcast for a couple of weeks, but guess what? We were in the making of getting this wonderful human being here who happens to be my dear friend, Honey Smith Walls. And we met on the transformational speaking journey. She's here. She's amazing. She's spectacular. She's awesome. And I'm not just saying that because she's my friend, but she is the author of, Healing with Cannabis. Let's make sure I've got the name right. Healing Beyond High, the Cannabis Truth. She's the host of the Cannabis Truth podcast, and she'll be sharing expert insights on medicinal cannabis. She's a certified healer, an advocate, and speaker who educates people about the plant's benefits. She has her background in healthcare, entrepreneurship, media, and she dispels the myths about cannabis. So when I uttered the word cannabis, I'm sure most of you had a reaction. So she's going to dispel all the myths about that. And she fosters informed and intentional use of it. Okay. This is going to be an amazing hour, very informative. And I will give the stage to you, Honey, as we start. Honey, tell me, what happened? Who is Honey? So Honey is right now 70 years old. And at 70, I can only be inspired enough to be doing what she does. She's a speaker, she's a healer, she is authoring a book. I mean, I just wish I had so much energy when I am 70. So first of all, big kudos for that. All right.
Thank you, Ruchi. Gosh, it's so wonderful to be here. And I appreciate you letting our audience know who I am and how old I am. And I say that out loud on a daily basis
Yes.
because I'm so proud of living and surviving for 70 whole years on this planet in such a confusing world,
Which is getting more
especially
confusing.
for women. We're told what to do, where to go, how to get there, and and given directions. And it's not always, a lot of times it's the road to hell. So we we're learning to lock arms with each other as women and to put our experiences together and collect all of that beautiful wisdom
Yes.
and start applying what we've learned to ourselves and each other and begin helping this world and lifting it so that we're no longer just people alone on this planet.
Mm.
Um, we need each other desperately,
Yes.
and all that's about love. So here you got me up on my love soapbox already, and
You,
really,
you know what,
it,
honey, when you said that, I'm just gonna share. I was just driving back home yesterday, and I looked at a couple of people, and there's a thought that just crossed by. And from what you said, when you're zoned out, you're just driving on your way to work, you're doing that all the time. And the moment was like, if I was here by myself as a sole human being, nobody else on earth, because I'm that person, or let me just drop everything and go to the Himalayas. And, people are the one that cause all the trouble. Well, that was me not so long back. And that moment was like, well, we are here to learn from each other. If I was the sole human being on this earth plane, possibly I won't have any trouble, but I cannot learn or grow. Even the people I want to touch their lives, whatever I want to do, if you were the sole human being on this earth, the whole purpose of being here would be nada. Does that make sense?
it does, and it feels so alone.
Yes.
It
Yes.
feels so lonely. I'm desperate for the affection and attention of other people,
Yeah.
but that's my human wanting that. what's inside of me doesn't need anybody else.
No, no.
What's inside of me, where I find peace, is alone. It
Yes.
is alone. And yet, when I go there inside for the peace, that's where I find community. That's where I find all of the love that I need.
Yeah.
So as a human being, I do want that affection and the words spoken to me and the touch.
Yes.
But as that special creature inside of me,
Mm-hmm.
we each have that spark of life, that alien within us that lives on
Yeah.
outside of our body.
Yeah.
So that thing, that's where real peace is.
Yes.
And in order to get there, we have to, I don't like to, we have to maneuver. I started to say battle. We have to maneuver. I don't like war terms. We have to maneuver and manage this world in a better way so that more collectively, so that we help each other, support each other instead of compete and beat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We learned a long time ago that might is not right,
No, no, no.
but we're
So if
still
you're competing,
fighting.
yeah, I'm not enough. If you have something, that something will be less for me. That's not true. I mean, we are all here on our own unique journeys, isn't it? So it's like, if you were to imagine that sun and lots of rays coming out of it, whatever you call that one central self, higher self, God, divine consciousness, whatever you call it, from that one, if you could think of many, many rays coming out, it's like each of us is coming out of it on our own individual journeys. Just imagine how futile it will be for one ray to compare itself to the other and say, oh my God, what's that? Well, you are on your own journey. The other person is on their own journey. And I think I genuinely believe that we take up the physical, mental, vital constitution that suits that journey. Like, for example, you will take a racing car for one reason, you'll take another car for another reason. So it's suited for the journey you chose. So I think the worst thing you can do is actually compare your journey to somebody else's. Would you agree, honey? Right?
Yes, yes, yes. And
Yes.
that journey comes from what you've already lived as well, the conditioning that you've already lived. You chose that thing for a reason. It's because it's comfortable, familiar, whatever in your past,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you like it. And so that's what makes us unique. All of this different conditioning and living with different people and being in different areas and eating different foods you know, and yet we still all put our pants on the same way, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. So it's the same thing, like, it's that same oneness that we come from, but that in the journey, if you start looking for differences, there are many, but I think belonging comes from when you look for similarities. And would you agree, like, now the world is small, we can connect with Zoom, with so many people. The humanness is still the same, no matter what part of the world you come from. The human feelings are the same, the human struggles are the same, no matter what name you give it.
Ruchi, you hit upon something that's so meaningful to me because you and I have become friends and we feel this really tight bond between us. And I love that so much. But we've never been able to meet in person. And yet, this bond, this connection is real
It is, yes.
and it's here and it's through this medium, this way that we're able to communicate, this technology. I can still feel goosebumps raising because of the emotional connection we make. And I think those emotions really fly on the wings and the wind of all of this electrical stuff, the matrix that we can't see outside of our body, that's there. We can feel this amazing emotional love and support through this medium. And
Yeah.
that's why I think um, social media is so important. Yes, it can do a lot of damage.
I think, you know,
But here we are, loving and spreading
although we have never met in person,
love. Never, never.
but at
And
least
this is real. I would come rushing to hug you forever if I saw you in person.
yeah.
That's how real this is, because I just feel so, so connected. And that's what we're doing when we lock arms. We're connecting with other women around the world to find this magnificent support,
Yes.
and to be able to experience the collective wisdom so that we can lift ourselves and our communities and our culture,
True.
our philosophies. I lived a long life with a man who was 22 years older than me. For 35 years, I lived with this man who I fell dog slobbering in love with. I was so crazy about him. He was my Prince Charming, and he literally swept me off my feet and took me sailing in the Caribbean for years on our own boat. But what I didn't realize was how controlling he was.
Hmm.
And he did it in such a charming way. I was completely sucked in. I didn't feel like I was being eaten alive, but I was.
That's
He
charming.
just consumed me and turned me into what he wanted me to be. And he did it in such a way that I was just like completely bamboozled for almost 35 years.
Hmm.
And although I adored him, I did not have autonomy. I did not have my own mind. I did not think my own thoughts. I thought everything about and around him
Hmm.
until I got sick.
Wow.
And when I got sick, then all I could think about was my own pain. And it was um, a glaring review of how I had been living and
Hmm.
what was happening, the reality that was happening to me, and the anxiety of it maybe never leaving me, and me being stuck in that sickness,
Hmm.
not being able to get out.
Hmm.
I would just want to say he was a wonderful man, and I really adored him, and he was good to me, but I still did not know me. I was his wife. I took care of him. My
Hmm.
world was all around him. And it was wonderful, and it was a wonderful life. But I was sort of like uh, you know, June Cleaver off of Leave It to Beaver with pearls on and an apron and vacuuming in my high heels. That was the person I thought I was supposed to be for
Hmm.
him.
Hmm.
So it was unusual, um, in that I never awakened from that
Hmm.
for the longest time. It was a long journey, dream, uh, of living in an altered existence,
Right.
other than who I really was. So I got sick,
Hmm.
and things changed. Now he has to sort of take care of me. Oh,
Hmm.
now I can't lift a finger. I had no energy because of my illness. It was um, myalgic encephalomyelitis, what we used to call chronic fatigue. And it just devastated me, totally wiped me out. And we were living on the boat in the middle of the Caribbean. And that's a completely different life. You've got real chores that you have to keep up with on a boat, or, boat won't float. So there were things that I was not doing and passing off to him that made his life a little harder while we were living aboard. And I missed so many opportunities to enjoy that beautiful journey and existence that we were on because
Mm-hmm.
of the sickness. It just wiped me out. It just devastated my energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, all the doctors that I tried to see, just getting to a doctor off of a boat
Mm-hmm.
was incredible strain. And it would take me days just
Mm-hmm.
to get over that kind of a thing. Now, on the boat, I was only 38. Doctors, they didn't know what to do with me and they couldn't figure out what was happening. And they weren't looking at menopausal symptoms because I was a little too young for their books.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just one thing after another with this chronic fatigue issues and then going through menopausal symptoms that they wouldn't believe, bloating, you know, mood swings, terrible, horrific mood swings, lack of energy, just all this all these things that women go through on a monthly basis, but exacerbated by 100-fold because of the chronic fatigue issues as well. And chronic fatigue, that was a new thing back then, and
Mm-hmm.
it was laughable situation. People would say, "Chronic fatigue, you're faking it. You just don't want to work. You're just lazy." It had a lot of stigma of its own before it had this fancy, long scientific, myalgic encephalomyelitis name.
Mm-hmm.
And then people began saying, oh, it must be a real thing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's real. It's devastating lack of energy. And you feel like there's no hope in tomorrow because you don't ever feel like you're going to recoup your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we we came back home.
Mm-hmm.
Not really because I was sick,
He
but
couldn't.
yeah, home meant coming back to the state of Florida,
Right.
and um, and we enjoyed living aboard for almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But we were both geeks for gadgets,
Mm-hmm.
and during that 5 years, laptops, GPS, cell phones,
You can't have it.
all of that stuff, satellite TV, all that technology just burst into our world and our culture, and we didn't want to miss it, any more of it. We'd already missed that www thingy, that world wide web thingy. It had already exploded. We wanted more of that,
Mm-hmm.
and we just had a ball figuring all of that out when we first came home. But I was really miserable.
Mm-hmm.
The doctors here at home couldn't help me. The blood tests they kept doing were so specific, they never showed anything. And quite frankly, even though moving back into the house was a very big task, I would have ordinarily I love nesting, what women do, moving furniture around and stuff like that. I couldn't do that though. And I was really, really sore and achy and miserable from all that was going on with me. And then a girlfriend suggested that I try a little pot, a little marijuana, and it was still illegal in those days.
Mm-hmm.
But I was an old hippie.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, the memory of smoking um, meant relief. It meant that I could relax. It meant that I might find a little um, relief, pain relief from all these sore muscles, from not moving, from atrophy and all that stuff going on,
Mm-hmm.
IBS, and um, just a terrible malaise and awful feelings. So I started using a little street pot.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was so illegal, I'd only use it late at night when my husband was in the other room and engrossed in a long television show. And I'd sneak outside and light a little joint and have a couple of puffs and put it out. And I'd be so afraid the cop across the street would smell it and come arrest me. And
Mm-hmm.
once my husband found out that I was smoking cannabis, he just threw a hissy fit because he was afraid that I'd be incarcerated. We'd lose our house. We'd, both go to jail and all of that stuff. So I couldn't even use cannabis medicinally the way I needed to. But I did find a tiny bit of relief when I did use it.
Mm-hmm.
It was more than a tiny bit. It allowed me to sleep. It allowed the muscle atrophy to go away for a while, all that soreness. It stopped the IBS. It stopped the anxiety that I had, the fear, the worry. I'm I was able to relax and settle that pain down enough so that I could go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be another few days before I could use it again because I was so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I was so afraid. I was afraid of being arrested for using a plant to help me find relief from ache and pain and nausea and all of that. So once um, once I realized how much help that I was getting, I began trying to sneak away and use it a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But the problems that it caused in my marriage and um, the fear of being arrested was terrible. It was awful to live in that kind of fear. And finally, my body just was about to give up. And it said to me, if you don't do something,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I'm too young to die. What are you talking about? I'm going to die. My body is telling me I'm going to die. But I couldn't move anymore. I was a musician. I didn't practice my music. I didn't go to band rehearsals, and I was the band leader. And I stopped running errands. I stopped driving. I didn't have the wherewithal to do anything. I didn't have any energy anymore. My tummy hurt all the time. My head was in a terrible place. I was filled with fear. I didn't know what my future was going to bring me, and I was still a young woman. And there I was, wasting away on my couch day after day after day for months after we'd returned. And the doctors couldn't find what was wrong with me. I wouldn't tell them, of course, that I was using cannabis because it was illegal, and
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid that, I'd be arrested. But that was the only source of help that I could find to quell these aching hands and to help me get over the nausea that I felt all the time, and to give me some sort of of, of pain relief. So
Honey.
once I know it had me on the couch feeling like I was going to die if I didn't find some sort of resolution. And my body was actually telling me that if you don't do something. And that just scared the bejesus out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And right at that serendipitous moment, a commercial came on television talking about good farming practices. I
Mm-hmm.
was, what? And all of a sudden, they were helping me understand that there were toxins in the soil, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides,
Mm-hmm.
heavy metals. And it was like a ding, 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 ding moment for me because, of course, street dealers don't care about toxins in your cannabis, in your marijuana. No, they don't. And
Mm,
it just made me realize I'd been poisoning myself on top of the
mm.
other issues I already had as a woman. And so at that time, cannabis had just become legal in Florida.
Darling, tell
And
me, how long was this time period from the point, like, thank you so much for sharing that.
yeah,
It's, you made it, you're here, so
I
many
did
years from there. So
there.
that's amazing. So tell me, like, from the point, like, you were diagnosed with chronic fatigue, we got the fancy name for it. You had, you were puffing, well, when you can,
When I
then
could.
yes, when you could, yeah. And that did give you some relief. Now you're like, oh my God, but these street dealers are, I don't know what they're putting in it. How did you continue this journey? Did you ever talk to anybody else about what you were going through? How did you find the light at the end of the tunnel? How did you come on the other side? And how can we see honey here? Happy, joyous, cheerful, full of energy. How did that happen?
So thank you for asking, Ruchi. It was really an amazing journey because I was afraid to speak to any of my doctors about using cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was still illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Out it had been legal, for a few months when I found out it was in the state of Florida as medicinal marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a different program than just using cannabis willy nilly or for recreation only. That's different. That's a
Mm-hmm.
different mindset. It's a whole different industry. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
using cannabis medicinally is um, is a much better route to go because that's what it is. It is medicine inside our body. It does all kinds of things for us in our body that we used to know about
Mm-hmm.
that was prohibited for all kinds of political reasons for the last 100 years. Now that we're understanding more about the plant and about the human body, science has, really taken leaps and bounds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we are able to understand the magnificent help that cannabis allows our body and how we have receptors in our body for this amazing plant molecule, all of their plant molecules.
Mm-hmm.
So when I began understanding more about how cannabis works in our body, then I began using it in a much more efficient way. There's really two mindsets: the stoners and the medical group. And I'm here to tell you the stoners are fine, and I love getting stoned and getting high, and I love that feeling with cannabis when I want it, when I'm ready for it, not when it's going to overtake me.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to learn how to use cannabis appropriately so that I could manage everything that's going on in this 70-year-old body. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been doing, learning how to use cannabis so that my body will respond to this medication and feel well, feel balanced, feel happy and
Honey,
grateful.
thank you so much for sharing all of that. But I had a query, and I'll be brutally honest here. The first time, we met, and when you mentioned about cannabis, my first reaction was, oh my God. Yeah, that was my first reaction. Yes, I'm a doctor. I have been practicing medicine for 10 plus years, and that was my reaction, right? because I've never prescribed it to anyone. I've never used it. I don't know much about it.
Mhm.
So, what can you share with our audience to kind of bust that myth about cannabis? Like, when you hear that word, oh my God, that's wrong, that can't be done, there's something wrong about it if you do it. And you said that this was legalized way back, isn't it? So,
Yes.
this is how I felt just about a couple of months ago. How, what can you tell us to clarify that? Like, yeah, please go. Please feel free to share away.
Thank you for asking that very important question. It's so important for people to understand that cannabis has been on this planet long before
We
human,
yes.
and that, let me give you a little example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Down at the bottom of the ocean, there's a slug, and it has something that you and I have. It has never seen the light of day, nor has it ever seen a cannabis plant. But
Mm-hmm.
it has an endo, meaning within for our audience, an endocannabinoid, as in cannabis, system of receptors. An endocannabinoid system of receptors. Just like you and me, we do too. And that endocannabinoid system of receptors runs throughout our entire body and up in our brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what allows us to enjoy the healing properties of cannabis, those cannabinoids inside the cannabis plant fit perfectly inside our body whenever it's needed. And because for the last 100 years, cannabis has been eradicated out of our food chain. They got rid of it in the fields, so the animals don't eat it anymore. The cattle don't eat it, the chickens don't eat it anymore, but they used to. And um, they eradicated it from our existence. We're no longer able to utilize it by consuming it. So that was all a political shenanigans. But now that science has understood the healing properties of cannabinoids,
Mm-hmm.
we can put both humans and animals together with cannabis and find all kinds of medicinal relief. So we have an ancient receptor system in our bodies. All animals do, except for insects, and all humans do. And cannabinoids fit perfectly and bind perfectly with this receptor system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we only just found this out in 1992. So this
Mm-hmm.
is new science.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we understand what the eradication of cannabis did to us as a human society and an animal society. We're seeing all kinds of illness and sicknesses, Parkinson's, cancers, all kinds of things coming up that never were there before they eradicated cannabis out of our diet. And so cannabis has always been part of the human body experience until the past 100 years of
Hey,
political prohibition.
that's really informative, and I did not know about that, so
Yeah,
that's very useful. But
yeah,
my query is like, when you're growing up, stay away from drugs, stay away, and there's always this mindset, like, when you say you can get stoned with it, somehow you can lose control, so it is injurious or harmful to your body system somehow. Wouldn't that be the case?
no, and thank you for bringing this very, very
Yeah.
important point up. There
Okay.
has never been a death by cannabis recorded in the history of the planet.
Okay.
Never been a death by cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was researching cannabis for my own issues,
Mm-hmm.
I found Dr. Ethan Russo's um, work on PubMed.gov
Mm-hmm.
about um, cannabis. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Um,
You take your
it's about cannabis. Uh, uh, oh, help me out here. I'm trying to form this thought bubble.
Okay. No, let me help. So my question was like, I am just from my own ignorance, I'm asking all the questions that I have worries
Yep,
about. I'm like,
yep.
okay, so maybe that's a bad thing. You can get high with it. You shouldn't be driving with it. It's gonna cause some sort of injury to my body systems, which will be irreversible. That's my thought process about,
Okay,
any sort of drug, may it be marijuana or cannabis or any other. Yeah.
okay. So cannabis is good for your body.
Mm-hmm.
It will not harm your body. It will help your body.
Mm-hmm.
Cannabis molecules are good for what's inside of you. You have a receptor system already built into your body that uses cannabinoids,
Mm-hmm.
and and they use them effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody gets high off of cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
it's not harming their body,
Mm,
but it is giving them a spatial experience. And it's what we do with that that decides whether or not, it's a good thing or not. Kids like getting high. It's and I like getting high, but
mhm,
it's not a harmful thing. It's
mm,
har- what's harmful about getting high is maybe getting into a situation that you can't control.
mhm,
Like if kids are sitting around, you know,
mm.
getting high and they don't understand the dangers around them, uh, as kids often don't. But
True.
that's different than adults getting high and sitting there watching a television show together, or dancing or whatever.
So,
And when people are trying to use cannabis as medication
mhm,
instead of just for the pleasure of getting high, that's a separate issue. Let's just put the
mm,
pleasure of getting high into
mhm.
a little side place
So,
over here.
yeah, yeah.
Medication of cannabis is what I prefer.
Mhm,
See, I'm
mhm,
70. I don't want to fall. If
mm.
I were to fall, it might mean the end of my ambulatory life on
True,
this planet.
true.
So I'm very cautious about my headspace being woozy and not knowing where my feet are or where my balance is. And
Mhm,
cannabis can make a person off balance.
mhm,
So you need to be prepared for that, or you need to not go to that high of a level when using cannabis. And you can manage the high in cannabis if you know how to. And it's easy. It's
Honey,
easy alchemy.
I have a burning question here. When you say that, sorry to interrupt, just I didn't. Does it have a addictive pattern? So, okay, we have put it aside, like, you don't want to, you're not thinking about getting high just for pleasure reasons. You're thinking of the medicinal benefits out of it. Agree. Despite that, despite using it that way, would it still have a addictive or habit forming pattern to it?
No,
It won't. Okay,
no,
that's
no.
useful.
Let me tell you what's addictive about cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
The pleasure of the feeling, the pleasure of feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
That's the addiction to cannabis. The pleasure of feeling better. But it is not a physical addiction. And it is not a mind captivating addiction like heroin. It's not that.
No.
Do that.
So
It,
heroin, marijuana, these are completely different things to cannabis. Did I get that right? Yeah.
yes, you did. They are completely different. They have completely different um, chemical functions, and cannabis is not in the same category as those other addictive compounds like heroin
Mm.
or, you know,
And cannabis
opium, any of
cannot
those.
cause any harm to your body, and it cannot cause any addiction other than obviously you feeling better. That's the only thing.
That's
Yeah.
that's correct. That is
Right.
absolutely correct. Now,
Right.
I want to say that for elders who are worried about getting woozy,
Mm.
from
Mm.
taking medications,
Mm-hmm.
this can totally be tamed,
Mm.
and you never have to get high from using cannabis if you don't want to.
Mm.
There are ways to balance the chemicals in cannabis so that the THC, the compound that makes you high,
Mm.
can be balanced and leveled out so that you don't feel high by using the other predominant compound
Mm-hmm.
in cannabis, which is called CBD.
Mm.
So I know that everybody has heard of THC that gets you high, and
Mm.
everybody's heard of CBD, which does not get you high, but helps you with inflammation and
Mm.
calming your nerves down, that sort of thing.
Mm.
So, uh, uh, there are two major compounds in cannabis, and then hundreds of other compounds that
Mm.
are wonderful for all kinds of different things.
Mm.
So just illuminating that and
my,
understanding
my
that,
mind feels illuminated right now
yeah,
because I didn't know a lot of things that you just mentioned, and I know
yeah,
it makes me look ignorant as as a medical doctor, but I'm going to be honest about it. I did not. So when I heard cannabis, I'm like, oh my god. So
you're
yeah.
you're in good company. Darling, you're in good company. 99.9% of the doctors on this planet do not know about cannabis.
That
They
makes me
have
feel a
yet to
little
learn.
bit better.
It was forbidden to teach doctors for the past 100 years. Forbidden to teach doctors about
Yeah.
cannabis. This is why you don't know anything about it.
Okay,
And
good.
so,
I'm feeling better now. I'm not feeling as ignorant anymore.
no, no, you, darling, now know so much more than most doctors on the planet about cannabis.
Yeah.
A, that it's good for you. B, that you never have to get high if you know how to use it. If
Mm-hmm.
you know how to work the alchemy of cannabis, of those cannabinoids, you never have to get high, but you can get all the benefits, which is taming your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
taming that IBS in your tummy, that nausea and that
Mm-hmm.
pain in your tummy, taming anxiety so that you're not worried about everything that's in front of you and
Mm-hmm.
that you're not thinking and ruminating over what you left behind you.
Mm-hmm.
This is an amazing help for you emotionally, mentally, and it alleviates a lot of heartache.
Mm-hmm.
So, aside from helping you with, your daily personality,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not talking about being stoned or high. That's recreational.
Yeah,
And
that makes that sound.
as much fun as it is to get high, I love getting high. I don't. I don't get high, not very often, because I don't need to. I'm
Mm.
a 70-year-old woman. I've got all kinds of old lady issues. I,
Right.
and I'm busy. I
Right.
need my mind.
Mm.
So I use cannabis all day long in
Mm-hmm.
this form and this form.
Mm.
If I want to, if I want to smoke it, I'll go outside and light up a beautiful joint cigarette that's just marijuana and sit outside on the back porch and watch the critters and have a lovely, you know, hour or so reading or listening to something or just watching my pets, and
Mm.
that's different. But
Mm.
I medicate beginning first thing in the morning with cannabis. with with oh, and this is just a terpene, one terpene that is often found in cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
So new science is showing us that we don't even need cannabinoids to help us feel better. We can use one terpene, the major terpene called beta caryophyllene in cannabis. And that can help us alleviate all kinds of painful arthritis and neuropathy and all this stuff going on. It can help us with our attitudes
Mm-hmm.
and with IBS and tummy issues
Mm-hmm.
and with energy. So we're finding out that the compounds
Mm-hmm.
in cannabis, the individual compounds in cannabis can be extracted from not even doesn't even have to be from cannabis. Beta caryophyllene is a terpene that grows in abundant
Mm-hmm.
uh, plants, and we can use those
I've got
to
another
help ourselves feel better.
I've got another question. So two burning questions I have right now is, what is the age of the youngest individual who can use cannabis without we having to worry about, oh my god, will they be able to manage? So what age? And the second question was, so that's the one, what age? Second one was, what are the things, like, you mentioned arthritis, you mentioned inflammatory diseases. So what are the things where people might say, I've got this issue? I mean, as a clinician, I come across chronic fatigue syndrome is a big anomaly. Like, I'll mention a few things: fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. So
Yes,
wherever the clinician says, I don't know the issue, but I can work around the symptoms, that I still feel there is still a base to it. There has to be. Because see, I totally agree. I've met people, the symptoms are real. They're not made up, even if you can't find the base in the body, right? So there
that
has to be a way and means to find out why. So I am extremely pleased. And with the chronic fatigue that you suffered, I mean, I believe our audience would be equally curious to know, were you able to get rid of all the things weighing you down, the symptoms of chronic fatigue with the use of cannabis?
I'm so glad you asked these questions. So I I've got so many thoughts going on in my head. I'm trying to straighten them out before I answer the the first question about um, being cautious of children using cannabinoids.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to love this, Ruchi. You're going to love this.
Mm-hmm.
Women produce endocannabinoids.
All right.
We make endocannabinoids like anandamide and 2AG. I'll let you look those up.
Mm-hmm.
But anandamide is expressed through our breast milk.
All right. Okay. So as young as that, then. Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And babies who are born with the advantage of being nursed will have the benefit of those endocannabinoids passed through to them. They are critical to
Mm-hmm.
our and and the fact that we have been forbidden to consume cannabinoids in our food chain
Okay. Okay.
has
Well,
caused all kinds of issues.
so you said we make endocannabinoids, which are passed in the breast milk.
Yes,
Will that be based on if the mother had endocannabinoids or what she's eating, or it irrespective of that, that it
it
will
is.
be passed?
It's irrespective of that.
Oh, I am so glad. I nursed my little one for 15 months. I'm like, yes, I did
Yes,
something.
I
Okay.
nursed too. I nursed for almost 2 years. Yeah, and so yeah,
Brilliant.
I was a real nursing warrior. Yeah. And
It
that was
is.
at a time, yeah, because in the 70s, everybody was going to bottle and it
No,
was
no.
just, Ugh.
Would you agree? I know. I mean, for me, my little one is still 3, and still it feels like a long time back. This is a little bit aside, but I actually felt like, if my emotions were wobbly, the breast milk production changes. So I had to keep myself on a very positive and happy note, because if I'm not, if the baby is completely reliant on the breast milk, you
It
don't
sours our milk.
you don't
It
produce enough.
sours our milk.
That's
Who
a
knew? That was the craziest part, wasn't it? I agree. I had to stay happy for sweet milk.
yes, yes, I totally
I,
agree.
I was blown away by that
Yeah,
because he didn't want to nurse if I was crying or upset.
yeah, yeah. If you're
Uh,
upset, they don't want it. Yeah,
yeah, he didn't want it. Didn't taste good. Who knew? That was just so bizarre.
no,
And
getting that. Yeah.
yeah, and my baby is 47 now.
Older than me, then oh my god, okay.
Yeah.
No,
so
honey, thank you
so
so much
back
for
to
sharing that.
babies. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, my mind has been blown away. A whole lot of things that you mentioned, like, I was so ignorant about those. So this has been really informative. So just to summarize for our audience, we as women make endocannabinoids. That means they go in the breast milk. So that's one. Second, marijuana and heroin and all of those come in a different category. Cannabis in
Wait,
medicine.
wait, 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 wait. Let me
Yeah,
stop you right there.
yeah.
Marijuana is cannabis.
Oh my.
Marijuana and cannabis are the same plant.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
Most people don't realize this.
Okay.
Marijuana is cannabis. It's the
Right.
female version.
Oh, okay.
Marijuana is the female version of a cannabis plant that is both male and female. So,
Interesting. Okay.
depending on how you grow it,
Yeah.
is whether you get the female plant marijuana with all of the, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. All you get.
great mind bending stuff,
Mm,
or whether you're getting the hemp male product.
mm,
Male product is hemp that
mm,
grows tons and tons of CBD in it.
mm,
So marijuana grows more THC,
mm.
hemp grows more CBD.
And what we really want is CBD. That is the
You
effect.
want them both.
You
You
want both.
want them both depending on what's happening. If you're an autistic child,
Mm,
you need more CBD with a little tiny bit of THC in it.
mm,
Tiny bit. If
mm,
you're a cancer patient trying to get rid of tumors, you
mm,
want more marijuana that has THC in it for the cancer fighting properties in THC.
mm-hmm.
And CBD has cancer fighting properties too. And there are hundreds of cannabinoids in cannabis. So I use the glorious full term of cannabis to talk about all of it. But when I get specific about the different properties, marijuana has more THC in it
Mm-hmm.
than CBD, and hemp has more CBD in it than THC.
And is marijuana also legal or not?
Marijuana is legal.
It is. Okay.
It just depends on what your state legislators have decided they want
Mm,
in in cannabis for you. And it's willy-nilly. It's real stupid. It's real stupid. They need to free the plant,
mm,
start all over with, and go from the science,
mm,
because it's really been legislators in the little black bag of doctors.
mm.
And doctors don't know anything about cannabis yet
Yeah.
because they've been forbidden to learn.
Mm,
Forbidden to
yeah.
learn, or they will be prosecuted.
True.
And so those laws are now changing,
Mm-hmm.
and doctors are beginning to see the real science of cannabis and how it can help us and how we already have this ancient
Mm,
receptor system in our bodies
mhm,
that wants and needs and uses cannabis to regulate this master regulatory system of receptors in our body.
mm,
So, cannabis can alleviate a lot of typical aches and pains even without a doctor dance. You know, if we get a cold, we go to the medicine cabinet, we get a little NyQuil or something and go to bed and sleep better because it helps us breathe
mm,
better and it
mm,
calms all that mucus and stuff. Well,
mm,
we can do the same thing if we go to the cannabis cabinet and help ourselves through cannabinoids that are far more gentle on our system
mm,
than uh, uh, ooh, can't say the word,
mm,
than prescriptions
mm,
that are made up.
mm.
So,
Honey,
uh,
tell me. Sorry, I keep interrupting. It's just like you give me so much information. I've got these burning questions that come up. So
ask me.
yes, I've been blown away.
I
Like,
love it.
yeah, amazing. So if we have our audience who are listening to you, who themselves or they know of somebody who is suffering with any of those things, inflammation, anxiety, chronic fatigue,
Chronic
fibromyalgia,
pain.
chronic pain, any sort of chronic pain, and they want to get hold of cannabis or know more about cannabis, what are their options? What can they do?
I hate to say this, but
Yeah.
it's not easy at this point.
Okay.
This is a nascent industry. It's new. It's
Mm,
just beginning. And
mm,
there's all kinds of false information around it.
right.
So I strongly recommend that you find somebody in the cannabis industry who
Mm.
has been looking into the medicinal qualities,
Darling,
not the adult use,
how about
the
our
medicinal
audience
qualities.
contact you? How about our audience contact you? Because they have listened to you, they know you have been on the cannabis journey, you have seen the results, and you're not taking it for the sake of getting stoned. You have seen both sides of it. Would you be happy for our audience who are viewing it right now or who view it at a later date to get in touch with you? It could be via social media, or we can share your details in the comments. Basically, if they have any questions, and they are very welcome to join the cannabis podcast, which Honey does, where she will be revealing so much more and answering your questions. And I would say this episode has been incredibly helpful and more like eye opening for me
Oh,
because
no.
so many things that I had no clue about. And yes, I do see people with chronic fatigue, and mostly it's like managing symptoms. I
Yep,
have done, like, on the psychological side of it, healing around it. But yeah, cannabis is like a new avenue. So
it is.
it was an honor and pleasure to have you, and I cannot thank you enough. And I would really, really tell our viewers who are viewing it right now or later to subscribe to the Cannabis Truth podcast and tell us about your book again. When is it coming out?
Oh, Ruchi, thank you so much for asking. I'm very excited about this book.
Mm-hmm.
There are already a lot of cannabis books on the market, but none that really helps you understand the practicalities of walking that cannabis path.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make it perfectly clear to our audience, I am not a doctor. I am not a scientist. I am a cannabis advocate and the host of the Cannabis Truth podcast, which has aired over 275 episodes, mostly with medical professionals, helping us understand how cannabis can help us. And so, um, please let me just offer your audience a little gift that
Oh,
might help them
right.
understand a little bit more about the use of cannabis and what it might be applied for.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to healingbeyondhigh.com, which incidentally is the name of my book too, Healing Beyond High,
Mm-hmm.
then you will find what I put in my cannabis medicine cabinet. It's called Cannabis Recovery Cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just for simple aches and pains, cuts and bumps and bruises that do not need a doctor dance, just the ordinary medicine. This one has suggested cannabis use to alleviate your typical aches and pain.
So
So,
healing beyond
love
high.
for your
Yeah.
to have that.
Healing beyond high.com. Yeah, high as in
healingbeyond.com.
HIGH. Healingbeyondhigh.com.
HIGH, that's right. And so thank you so much for this opportunity to explain how cannabis could be an integral part of our womanly daily lives to
Yes.
help us be a woman comfortably, in happiness, in balance. And cannabinoids can help us do that gently on our system and even replace a lot of pharmaceuticals that we're ordered by prescription. So plant therapy works much more gently in our system than pharmaceuticals do. And this is a new way of helping women do just that. I got real tired of the hot flashes. I got real tired of the mood swings. I got real tired of the IBS. I really wanted to sleep well. I got tired of getting up 3 or 4 times in the night because of a spasming bladder. That's all gone. I sleep all night long now. And at 70, that's just wildly unusual. So, and it's because of cannabis. So I use cannabis all day long from morning till night. First thing I do when I get up is have a little cannabis with my coffee. And I use it in many different ways and different forms. Just reminding you, I smoke it. I use it in tinctures. I use it in salves to rub on my arthritis, and I eat it in the foods that I use. Anyway, be much more gentle on your system. And you don't have to get high. I just want for professionals who don't like being high. We're too afraid of falling. So you never have to get high on cannabis unless you want to. And that's a special fun thing too. So I do that with girlfriends when we come over and binge watch movies and eat all kinds of goodies. So that's the fun of cannabis. But the medicinal value of cannabis is much more significant to me, especially as an older woman. So please enjoy my gift at healingbeyondhigh.com. Can't wait for you to see it. And holler at me if you have any questions. There'll be a link. There will be a link somewhere to get to me. You can always write to me, honey at healingbeyondhigh.com.
Honey at healingbeyondhigh.com. I'll just
That's
repeat
it.
that. Honey at healingbeyondhigh.com. Okay.
That's it.
So let's thank Honey for taking her time to be here with us. And I literally thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
It's so great to be with you, darling Ruchi. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so here let's turn it down.